Hello, everyone. Welcome back to whatever this is. Uh, Another day, another episode. Hatim, listen, I have an important question to ask you.
Go ahead. I'm waiting. I was waiting for you to pose the question, and it never came.
If you could, which time period would you want to time travel to, and why?
Honestly, for me, there's many places that I would want to time travel to, but even I just want to mention for our viewers if I just wondering if they can mention in the comments too what their opinion is about how movies present time travel because in reality, and this is for people who want to skip all this sciencey stuff that I'm gonna mention, is that it's almost impossible to time travel because you have to go faster than the speed of light. So to go faster than the speed, you have to go faster than the speed of light to get back and forth. So it's very unlikely that you'll be able to time travel, unfortunately.
When you brought up this kind of topic for discussion, I was wondering we should set up like a framework, right? And you even mentioned this before recording. I think we should discuss it in such a way that we cannot interact with the environment. It's as if we're watching it on a VR headset, right? Like you're just in the moment, but you cannot do anything to the people there, influence anyone or influence anything.
Yeah, that would change the timeline.
Yeah, because what tends to happen is even in today's uh, time period, right? I don't know if you've heard about the butterfly effect, but every decision you make can have a completely drastic outcome, even if it's like leaving for work 5 minutes later one day.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
so I don't know
I know the
how
butterfly effect.
true that is. Yes, so I don't know how true that
It's
is, or if it. I'm not sure, but
it's
like
it's a
it could
very
definitely affect.
sorry, I didn't want to cut you. I just was saying it's a very interesting idea because honestly, you would believe it. Um, so just to also add in besides science, the legalese, like many common law jurisdictions in the world. Well, I don't know about the world, but I'll say in the U.S. at least, but probably in UK and India and stuff too. They use a but for test, like but for this action this occurred, like but for me kicking you, you wouldn't break your leg, for instance, right? So the butterfly effect is basically like a but for test, like oh, but for me going to work 5 minutes late, I I ended up getting hit by a truck or something like that. Because if I went 5 minutes early, maybe I wouldn't have gotten hit, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? So it's like a very similar concept. Like you're every little thing affects the way you will be, and it's true that if I took 5 minutes longer to get ready today, that means I'm less than 5 minutes somewhere else.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank God we have our expert lawyer here. Otherwise, I wouldn't know how to explain but for and all that crap. But yeah,
it's a very simple concept, but that's not the discussion for today.
if you because you said you had so many in mind, we can maybe narrow it down to top three.
Top three will be good.
Yeah, where and why?
I'll say first that like I don't know how the avoidance of people or anything, how that would work. But like if wasn't able, first place I would want to go is ancient Greece with Plato and Socrates, and to hear the discussions, the philosophy and the discussions, and see how much of their arguments that we have today are true, how much is lost in translation. It would be a very interesting thing to see. Maybe if we had like a disguise to make us look like regular other Greek citizens and just ask questions, I would wonder how Socrates and Plato and all their conversations would be.
For that, we'd need to learn how to speak Greek as well.
Well,
Or
again,
is
and
that
this
another
also,
given in our universe where you know the language?
yeah, and this is also assuming I can actually speak Greek and the ancient dialect too.
I mean, yeah, let's just assume you have the superpower of knowing all the languages, past and present dialects, all of them.
Then yeah, so I said Greek. I mean Greece. So that's there. Another place I would want to probably go to is American Revolution. That's a good one too. See how that all went down. I mean, especially for someone who's in law school, it's just interesting to think about. Like, if I actually saw their discussions and actually a first-hand witness, we would get a better understanding of what interpretation that they have for certain aspects of the Constitution. So that I think that would be fun as well as number two.
Are you, speaking of number two, are you talking about the Second Amendment?
Yes, and many others. Honestly, everything in that document is ambiguous, but Second Amendment is a good point. I wasn't necessarily thinking of it, but that's true though, because that term itself is such a big conflicting idea today that you'd wonder exactly what did they really mean and what like their interpretation. And again, like so many people made it. James Madison was the father, but there's also other people who were a part of it. So there are different ideas. Like not everyone thinks of one term to necessarily mean exactly the same thing. We just have general ideas of certain words.
Right. Uh, I guess for the Constitution part, I feel like it'll be important as well if you could travel into the future to see future America. And if you were to make any changes, how would that affect the future Americans? Right? Because you're only going to be on this planet until like 2100 max. That's if you're
Yeah,
lucky.
yeah. If I'm lucky, yeah,
Like what about after that? Like what if you made guns harder to get and use, but then the future generation there's like the government it becomes like a totalitarian regime and you actually need guns to fight back. But lucky for them, like they got rid of the guns.
yeah. Exactly. Like you. It could actually be a whole lot worse sometimes. But we always assume things will always be worse if they were changed. Sometimes. I actually want to mention this little nugget too. That as like when I was a kid, I mean, I still view myself as a young guy, of course, but like even when I was younger, on Discovery Kids, I think it was. I don't know. I forgot exactly what channel it was. They had a show called Time Warp Trio. So like literally, these kids would go back in time, and there would be changes in the future, and it would result in them actually like changes in the world. And I just remembered an episode where they did something with Napoleon Bonaparte, and he ended up not losing Waterloo, so that resulted in Americans being more French because he never sold the property was never sold.
I've never heard about this. Wait, so did like are you talking about Waterloo in Europe or Canada?
No, Waterloo in Europe because he didn't lose, right? So he still was in power. So from some chronicle of events, the American area was still controlled by just French as opposed to British. I'm assuming guess they're saying that because Napoleon was still powerful in Europe and he still ended up conquering all of it, so that's why it ended up not being a British America but a French America.
Dude, the whole American I guess your second point, like y- it's possible you could spend your whole life just traveling back and forth in American timelines just to see what the most holistic American Constitution could be.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like certain definitions too, and certain viewpoints. Um, you would wonder if instead of writing men, you write People would prefer to write persons nowadays, but like again, there's so many things you can't.
Shut up,
It's
bro.
a whole.
Shut up. It's okay.
I don't really mind the men because I know they mean women and men, but like I'm just saying in general that might be something a very simple term that people understand might would prefer to be changed.
Bro, in that case, half the freaking Constitution is going to be like all the genders there are nowadays.
That's that's a conversation for another day. But
Yeah, but
yeah,
what's your
so
third point? Yeah, just curious.
third point, yeah, it would be tough. But I guess maybe like the Roman Empire. because it spanned so far. Maybe Emperor Nero's time. That's something that would be interesting. There's so many, but I think it would be interesting. Because he obviously was considered crazy, so you'd wonder where people got that perspective. I've heard that he's not. It's more propaganda, if anything, about him actually being crazy and starting the fire. So that would be very interesting to see too. Just most of Roman history, like they controlled so much.
Who's Emperor Neo? Never heard of the guy.
Nero is considered like the crazy emperor of Rome. He was accused of like burning down like the bridge or something. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but he was accused of burning parts of Rome. I'm literally gonna look it up right now. It's gonna take 2 seconds.
Is that where they came up with the name for Cafe Nero?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, he was accused of just burning Rome because there was a fire in Rome. So people accused him and said that he started it. Because but mostly that's believed to be his enemies who've created that. From what I've heard, who created that
Bro,
narrative.
if that's the case, do you think Oda took inspiration from Nero for King Riku in Dressrosa?
Maybe. The thing is with Dressrosa is that Riku never really was bad. Like he didn't have a bad reputation. He actually was a pretty good guy.
Yeah, but we don't know if Nero was a good guy either. It's just
Yeah, we
from what
don't.
history's told us. So if
Right.
the Straw Hats never went to liberate Dressrosa, I guess Doldo just would have been like the evil emperor forever.
I'll say one thing though, like mentioning about Dressrosa and Doflamingo, like when during the Marineford War, he says the winners, what's justice? It's written by whoever's the winners, basically. In short sum, that we being able to time travel and actually see all the events as it is will give you a really good perspective about what's actually going on. Because even in history, despite what people think, it's very there's a lot of debates about what's exactly, or at least for the perception of certain people.
That's fair. Damn, bro, yours has been pretty deep. Like your three. I never thought about it like that.
And that's even bringing out like our religious stuff too. Like I'll leave that on the side just so because this is we're not trying to get into religion here, but like there's also a lot of events that would want to go back in time for that too.
But so the concept of time travel, are we only going back in time, or can we go ahead?
I actually wasn't really thinking about that, but yeah, you can go ahead. Why not?
Bro, bro, that's a nice segue. I can go ahead into my three
Yeah, I went to the
points.
past, you went to the future.
I want to see how much more advanced Japan can get with their technology and like all their cool stuff they have like here and there in Tokyo. I want to see if robots take over Tokyo one day. So like maybe in like 400 years, 500 years, I would want to visit Tokyo in like 2500 or the year 3000.
Or they're like wearing Iron Man like type mechs everywhere and they're just going around.
Or it could be possible that they go completely reverse and go back to like the Edo period, where it's just like trees and small houses. Because the other thing about Japan, right, is that the population is decreasing like crazy. Like they're not making enough children. So that could actually be the reverse, where they don't have enough like resources to keep expanding, so they're just gonna go back in time and become like a rural Japan, like what they used to be.
Dad, I did not know that they're having a decline population wise.
Yeah, I mean that's why there's so much you would say perversion in manga and anime nowadays, because what people are saying is that they're trying to get each anime more like popular so that young people would be more interested to repopulate the earth by
That's
consuming such content.
that's such a weird theory and I'm not gonna rule it out, but like that's just a very strange theory that don't take. But a lot of, but the thing is only with that, and I'm not gonna go into too much on this theory, but like manga in itself and Japanese culture of what's acceptable is not the same as the West. Like their version of like some of those things are just like oh whatever, but like for Western audiences that's like a little bit like oh like why are you showing this? So it's like it's a little different
Yeah, but
culturally.
have you seen, uh, like, since Wano ended, One Piece has just been H anime and H manga. Like, you can't deny that.
Since Wano ended,
Yeah,
how?
there's been so much. And also, like, that genre has popped off a lot in recent times.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean it's true. It has probably, but like the thing is, I wouldn't say One Piece has done more than what Oda's usually done.
That's fair.
I don't know
Uh,
if I can say because, for example, there was that scene in Alabasta when they had when like Cobra and all of them were in the bath and everything, and then they saw the women's bath, and so like that. There's not. It's not really that
no,
more than
bro,
he's done before.
what's messed about what's messed up about that scene was Cobra wanted to see Vivi, dude.
No, man, don't even start with start with that. Like
That's that's literally he wanted to see Vivi, but Nami like knocked some sense into them.
that when I think this topic is this topic is gonna have to go indoor where I honestly
All
don't
right.
think of it that way, but that's kind of disturbing.
And the second point for me is that, like, I guess for you, because you're American, you wanted to see the American Revolution. I'm Indian, so like I want to see like when the Brits took over India and like how Mumbai would have been in that time. Because it's very interesting to see like my grandfather talk about how life used to be, and he thinks that India would have been better off if the Brits stayed, which is pretty funny.
That's that's a hot take. That's a very hot take.
So yeah, that's my second one at least. Do I have a third one?
The thing is, though, here's what I'll mention with you said your dada.
Yeah.
That yeah, like that's a very hot take, and the only reason I have very concern about Indians in general, and this will be a topic for another day too, is that Indians and maybe even I would say maybe even Pakistanis or other Muslims in the U.S. or in the Western world are just becoming more like white people, and I feel like if you had the British ruling India, like even today, I feel like there would be barely any Indian culture left.
I mean, I don't think he cares about that. I think
Maybe he doesn't, but I feel like that would change like a lot of you know India. There might not even be a Hindu religion potentially. Maybe there would be a very extreme minority. That would change like the whole entire history of India. Would there even be a Pakistan too? If the reviewers don't know, I am Pakistani, so would there even be a Pakistan after? Like that conflict would even have existed. That would be or there would just be a Christian Muslim conflict. Then that's a whole topic for another day.
I I thought of another topic, like what, like, maybe, but the thing is I don't have enough knowledge for all this, but like it would be interesting to see what historical events would you want undone, or like what would you do differently, and that's something that we could maybe look into later.
Yeah,
That'll
that
be
would be
something
fun.
cool.
Yeah, that would definitely be fun. I mean, again, that brings a butterfly effect, but like that's a fun thing to think about too.
Yeah. And I think the third one for me would have been more like of the religious aspect, which I don't want to get into, because I can't think of anything else right now. Yeah, I was thinking about this a lot even before this episode. I just couldn't think about the third one. Like these were just the two of them in my mind. I don't
Dinosaurs?
have like a top three. I would die the
Dinosaurs?
first minute, dude. I
Yeah,
don't want to
but
go back to that time.
what do you want to try? Dinosaur meat?
I mean, for that I would have to take someone who can cook it for me, with me.
You just need a
So I don't know how
fire.
to do that either.
You just need a fire. You just put it on the fire and bam.
How do you make a fire?
Bring one of your high tech nowadays. Bring a lighter and just you have fire. Oh, that might mess up the timeline though. That would
Yeah.
mess it up.
Also, the thing with dinosaurs is that they were such huge creatures. Like the bugs must have been that big too. So like you're gonna die from like an insect bite before you can even see a dinosaur.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right about that. I believe from what I've seen, something like probably like all the animals were just really really big at that time.
Big and big, and they'll do anything. Can't trust those species.
Yeah, but it would be fun to ride a triceratops or something.
If you're Luffy, dude. Uh, yeah, because I don't have the capacity for that, bro.
I
I don't
find it
like
very
animals in general.
I find it very interesting how in fictional stories like One Piece or even like Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that, they have like dinosaurs living with people, and it's just a very interesting concept just because their existence is so different from humans. Like we talked about dinosaurs being so big, and like we talked about we talked about giants being so big and having to accommodate for that. Like, how would the world change if there's even one or two dinosaur species, even if they're herbivores? Like, how would that change the world so much? Because to accommodate all of that, it's hard.
Two herbivores won't make a difference.
I mean, like
Like
not
they're just gonna
two,
eat grass.
not literally two, but like I mean, like
Oh, two
species
species.
wise, like species wise too.
I thought you meant like two dinosaurs. You can just give them Madagascar, and that'll be enough for them.
Yeah, you know, another interesting place would be to go to is Africa. Like that whole area is so Africa and South America. Those areas are very unknown, and there's a lot of parts of history that people don't, like I said, don't know about. So that would be very interesting to explore.
Oh, to see the conflict in. I think the biggest. I feel like the most tragic thing that's happened to Africa is the genocide in Congo from the Belgians. So that would have been an interesting thing to see the politics behind that. Because I think I saw a statistic somewhere. That guy, the ruler at that time, he killed more Congolese than Hitler did Jews, which no one reports about. Like no one talks about that.
Yeah, unfortunately, yeah, that's a conversation for like you're talking about genocides. Like the Armenian genocide is another genocide that happened that people don't really talk about. It happened around where Turkey is, and because Turkey's an ally of the U.S., they don't really talk about it much. And that's why Hitler thought he could do the Holocaust because no one talks about the Armenian genocide. So what would they talk about this? So, yeah, those conflicts would definitely be interesting to see. And I did not know that about the you said Congo?
Yeah, the Republic
Yeah.
of Congo back then it was much bigger. It was like almost all of Central Africa, but I think it's been split up now because of uh, colonial colonialism. I can't say it.
Colonialism.
Yeah, that
Colonialism.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that thing.
yeah, but those areas would be fun to explore as well. Like Africa, like I think a lot of people and maybe even a lot of Western viewers don't understand. It's like it's a huge continent. Like it's a huge chunk of land. There's so many different types of people that and how they were before. The Western world colonialized them would be just it would be a lot of fun to look at.
For sure. I think that's all I have for today, dude.
Yeah, I think that's good. We just
Yeah.
created more topics to talk about in the future. So
Yeah, if you get time after this, just like take a quick note, and we'll revise for the one person watching us. Hope you're
yeah, and
enjoying this stuff so far, dude.
that one person is having a really good time. That one or two people
I
who are
hope so.
watching are having a really good time. I hope so. I hope so too. So we're just creating more topics for the future, and hopefully people stay tuned.
Yeah, that's been it from us. Have a great weekend, guys, or weekday, or morning, or evening. Peace.